The Hunger Games films were not great. I enjoyed Catching Fire, but the rest had horrible pacing, either being too fast or too slow. I actually worry a lot for A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, with that being the longest and yet most dense book at the same time, though I haven't seen the film yet, so you'll have to let me know. The Hunger Games films weren't nearly as bad as other failed adaptations at the time, like the Percy Jackson films or Miss Peregrine movie, but I can't get any enjoyment out of the majority of the 4 Hunger Games films. Well, the acting was on point. That was the only good thing. Katniss and Gale look far too old. A lot of the sets just don't fit the book. Shaky campfight scenes, horrible changes, especially in Mockingjay, which had the longest total runtime, yet still cut important scenes. I don't agree with a lot of the casting, even if the acting is good. There are good parts, but there are few good parts. So now, we are in an era of rectifying these bad film adaptations into a TV show adaptation, and while it won't work for many series, which will be hurt by dividing up a story for a series like Hunger Games, it may be the perfect choice. So stay tuned for... Now, when I ask for a Hunger Games TV show, I don't want to get a 6-hour movie divided into 8 episodes and call it a day, because Hunger Games has the opportunity for a more interesting adaptation. At the moment, my favorite TV adaptation is A Series of Unfortunate Events, because while it does a great job of adapting the books, it also adds onto the story from the books in a satisfying way that adds a lot of intrigue, especially to those who have read the books. These extra scenes and plot lines all happen in the books, technically, though we only hear rumors of them happening or just know they happen off screen for what we know is going to happen. But they add a lot and help flesh out the world in these 3 seasons of television. And the Hunger Games adaptation could work in a very similar way. A big part of the Hunger Games in the books is TV and propaganda. All of the Hunger Games is televised, and the Propos and Mockingjay, and there's a few other things like the wedding for Katniss, and there's a lot of pressure because of TV, and I feel like if we tie into that, it could make a really interesting show. In my ideal Hunger Games show, we could use these televised events to help flesh out the world of Panem and let us see the story's larger scope. While Katniss would still be the main focus, I want more screen time devoted to other characters. How the show would work is that certain episodes just followed Katniss and her experiences, but the rest of the show would be seen through TV or people watching TV. We could get an episode being the broadcast of the Reaping, where we see a bit of what happens in each district, and get the majority of the time just being spent on Katniss's reapings as they're coming, she volunteered from District 2. While Katniss enters the arena, we could get an episode 2 or focusing on Panem and what they are seeing on TV, how Haymitch is responding, and this would give us time for some of the other tributes to see them. One way I can see this working is the Hunger Games, the audience gets to forget about Rue. While us, the audience, would be worrying about what Kid or Thresh might do to Katniss, assuming we haven't read the books. Since Rue isn't a threat to anyone, just hiding, we'll see almost none of her on the TV until Katniss teams up with her, and then it's kind of like a twist, even though she was there the whole time. If you read the books, of course, it's not. But the fact that the audience won't see it, we can play into that, and it's world building. By seeing the majority of the story through the eyes of what the Capitol wants to show you, it can give you a lot of new context on the books, and won't make reading them pointless, because someone who's seen the show will now get to read Katniss's perspective by checking out the books. I do think there will need to be a very healthy balance of the propos and what's going on in TV, and then Katniss. For many important parts of the book, there are just no cameras in sight for like 50 pages at a time, and those scenes cannot be cut without destroying the story. Also, it still needs to be very clear who the main protagonist is. A good example is Andor. It's an ensemble show, but Cassian is clearly the main character. Even if he isn't in every scene, it's clear he's the main guy, and in the show, of course, it would be Katniss. The first episode might just be Katniss and Gale hunting, and then Katniss with her family on one episode preparing for the Reaping. Episode 2, we could see the Reaping on TV. Then episode 3 is the goodbyes and the train ride. Episode 4 is the parade. Maybe the training is in this one, and then so on and so forth. And the episodes don't need to be an hour long in this case. With the varied storytelling method, you can have a varied episode length depending on the focus and just make it a longer season with like 15-20 episodes. With this, it would make it a lot more difficult to have one episode release each week, or else it's going to be like half a year of it releasing. But you could release it in blocks, like we get one episode of everything before the game, one the first few days, one the last few days, and then the ending with the berries, and then Katniss going back. This could really help with the pacing as well, as we have something where it is just as long as it needs to be, not forced into being shortened into a movie or having things stretched out to fill an hour-long episode each week. Also, we can rectify the mistake of splitting Mockingjay up. The book was super slow to begin with, and then to split it into 2 boring movies just didn't work and left me bored and wasted a weekend worth of watching movies nights. With the TV aspect, we would get to see a lot more of the Hunger Games and the traps, how people died, spend more time with the contestants, and Caesar Flickerman as well, who's always a fun character to watch. I would also want to have an episode from the perspective of Haymitch as he secures donations and is trying to communicate with Katniss. A great place for this would be where Peeta and Katniss are in the cave, but you could put it somewhere else as well. And for the ending of the games, Katniss versus Cato and then the berries, that has to be seen from the perspective of Seneca Crane or Snow as they're watching the games. Seeing either of their reactions would just be golden and much more impactful to me than just watching them fight. Finally, though, we only should get 3 seasons. I don't think we should get a season in the future for Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, since that takes place before the Hunger Games has any audience interaction and just wouldn't work with this TV method. You could do a show, but it wouldn't fit with this method. I'd still like to see it because, again, I think it's going to be super fast-paced, the movie, but that's beyond the point. But after the show, if Sue Zane Collins came on board, I would love to see spin-off where we get a bunch of seasons focusing on previous Hunger Games. Some good examples would be the 2 Quarter Quells. The first one, we don't know who won. The second one, of course, it's Haymitch, and we could focus on him. And then we could see games of other victors we know, like Finnick, Beetee, or Joanna. These would let us see more of the evolution of the Hunger Games and let us focus on victors from other districts and what that dynamic's like, and just seeing who's fighting who and who's the teams. It could be fun. But for that to work, I definitely want Suzanne Collins heavily involved with the writing of that show if it happens, and I'm not sure if it would be possible or if she'd even want to do that. In summary, though, a Hunger Games TV series could give us a new perspective on the books, which would help develop the world of Panem, let us meet more characters and develop them, and learn even more about the oppression in the capital. One of my favorite TV shows of all time is Avatar: The Last Airbender, a show which is getting an adaptation very soon. To see why that adaptation is needed and isn't unnecessary, make sure to check out this video. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I want to start doing more Hunger Games content, so please let me know if you like it. Thank you all for watching. I have been Fictional Fanatics. I will see you in that video, but until then, bye!